With the new year only days away, I thought it would be appropriate to cover a topic that gets covered in January: horror movies. Some of you might be confused and believe I got my dates wrong, but there's actually a month that isn't during Halloween season that releases horror movies, specifically terrible ones. 9 times out of 10, if a horror movie releases at the beginning of the year, it'll likely be total dog shit. However, I'd like to bring up a topic not necessarily related to bad January horror movies, but the modern strategy I've noticed being used to produce money-making franchises. I dub this the low-budget horror snowball effect. Before I get into that, I would greatly appreciate you subscribing to my channel if you enjoy listening to film and TV show topics like this. If you enjoyed this video in particular, please hit the like button so I know what kind of topics I should discuss next. I've mainly covered DC content thus far, and I'd love to know in the comments below if there are any specific topics in the industry you would want me to cover in the future. Thank you all so much for your support. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts and read what you have to say. With that, let's jump in. Since it's the Christmas season, we can start with one of the most popular slashers of recent years. Terrifier has progressed into a 7-figure budget with its third Christmas-themed installment, which was made off of $4 million. But the franchise started on a measly $10,000, so how were they able to balloon into a budget with a cost in the millions? Art the Clown got tethered to a film that was so low budget, the threshold for breaking even was much lower. With enough traction online and a cult following, the momentum allowed Terrifier to grow into a more recognizable property than one would expect. And this franchise isn't the only one doing it. In fact, I believe this is becoming the most successful way to publish your concepts to the big screen, at least within the indie horror sector. In February of 2023, months after Winnie the Pooh entered the public domain, somebody decided to make a slasher film based on the property. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is about as bad as horror movies get in quality, but the name recognition allowed the movie to technically be a box office success. While this film is objectively a dumpster fire in terms of content, receiving a Rotten Tomatoes critic score of 3% and 32% from the audience, this indie slasher made a box office of $7.7 million off of a $100,000 budget. That means the movie made over 70 times its budget, which sounds like a major studio's wet dream. The publicity online gave enough oxygen to the film, even if most of it was negative. And what was the result? A box office smash hit by its standards, followed by a sequel a year later with $1 million budget. But no way it'll be successful again. First time had to be some kind of fluke. Son of a bitch. Anyways, there seems to be this perfect storm of new public domain properties available for indie horror filmmakers to utilize the snowball effect. Hell, after Steamboat Willie entered the public domain, another horror movie got released called The Mousetrap, as well as an additional adaptation coming out this January titled Screamboat. This fucker that did Blood and Honey really did just open this whole can of worms, huh? He's so high off his own supply, he's creating his own public domain horror cinematic universe and dubbing it the Pooniverse. I wish I was making this up. So be it. Don't hate the player, hate the game. If you are wanting to make a name for yourself with low-budget horror, the Pooniverse creator has now given a pretty solid blueprint with his public domain strategy, taking recognizable properties like Peter Pan and Bambi and changing them into low-budget slashers. I wouldn't say this guy will be directing the next Oppenheimer anytime soon, but so far his method has been relatively successful in the industry. With that in mind, I believe if you're looking to make horror content in the future, but just not too sure how to break into the industry, I'd attempt the public domain snowball effect method. Choose a recognizable property in the public domain and produce a low-budget horror movie version. If you make enough money for it to be a success, a studio will likely give you more money for the sequel, and if those movies keep making a net positive, the budget will continue to increase and your films will begin improving in quality. So much so, you can begin making the kind of films you really want to make and garner critical success and not just box office. I do wish the industry would be more accepting at welcoming online content creators to the fold. Talk to Me is a great horror movie to come out in recent memory and was directed by Australian YouTubers Danny and Michael Filippo. They made pretty innovative horror parody skits, like one where Ronald McDonald is a serial killer. Just some fun and creative videos to post online. I'm so glad they were able to get their film off the ground and will be creative juggernauts in the future for the industry. Unfortunately, there aren't many examples of creative YouTubers landing in this position due to traditional entertainment entities hell-bent against taking those creators seriously. I honestly wonder if they view popular YouTubers as a threat to their livelihoods, because I remember back when PewDiePie was really blowing up that the talk shows were acting a bit hostile towards him. It wouldn't surprise me if Felix was raking in more money than those entertainers. That is to say, while I would love for creators to be able to break into the industry via YouTube content, there appears to still be a lingering hostility preventing their big break. That is why aspiring filmmakers should attempt the public domain low-budget strategy. I'm not sure how many of you are wanting to find ways to break into the film industry. It's a tricky process and often comes down to being at the right place, at the right time, with the right people. However, I wanted to make this video to point out a possible strategy I've noticed in recent years that could be utilized by those who don't have the luxury of big budgets and industry connections. The reality is that the industry rewards nepotism over creativity, which I find quite upsetting. But if you can find ways to be innovative and business savvy, there are ways to get your foot in the door. I would like to stress that this snowball effect strategy with horror will categorize you into that genre specifically. So, if you're wanting to work on films that aren't in the horror genre, I would suggest a different strategy. If you do want to make horror content that can snowball into projects with bigger budgets, this strategy can be a profitable opportunity if you're wanting to be a part of the film industry. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my 2 cents. If you enjoyed the video, give the video a like and hit the subscribe button if you like what you see and want to see more content like this in the future. I enjoy making content discussing these types of things in the entertainment industry, so if you have any suggestions on future topics, feel free to tell me in the comments below. Until next time.